pressure break. Well, it's Thursday, time for your pressure break. If you're used to something short, I apologize. This will probably go longer than 5 minutes. I've been thinking a lot since the pandemic is over a year old at this point, and we're starting to see, I guess, a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel with different vaccines and a larger percentage of the population receiving vaccines, and more churches and businesses starting to open up. And not that it's business as usual, and not that we aren't looking back at how bad things were, but sometimes I think as Christians especially, we buy into this idea that things are somehow supposed to get better, like magically or something. I don't know really how to put it into words, but we get this idea that if we're being good or living right or doing the right things, that life is going to be better and become better. It's like we want the scale to just rise in our lives. And if we reach times when it seems like we're on a downward slope, or bad things are happening, or external circumstances aren't right, we get confused. It's almost like we buy into a prosperity gospel, and when things aren't working out, we wonder if we're really doing something wrong. And especially when I look back at history, even if we only rewind, 100 years or so, we run through these events, these horrible events: World War I, the Great Depression, another World War, recessions, housing market crashes, epidemics, pandemics, all of these different things that kind of wake us up. I was listening to somebody the other day talk about the earthquake, I guess it was in Haiti in 2010, that took, I guess, over 400,000 lives. And when we see things like that happening, it's hard for us to balance that and to find joy. But this particular story that I ran into is absolutely unbelievable. Like, when I read it, I had to reread it, and then I had to close my eyes and try to visualize what happened. It's in Acts chapter 16. If you're familiar, it's Paul and Silas essentially going to jail and then being freed from jail. Of course, these guys are missionaries. They've got a mission. They're telling people about Jesus, and they're doing it in a very public way. I'll just tell the story. Essentially, when they show up, there is this psychic lady that's actually a slave. Like, she has people that own her to make money off of her ability. Her ability is obviously demonic in nature, and she annoys Paul. Like, the word is literally, Paul was annoyed at this lady. So after a couple of days of her hanging around or whatever, he finally turns around and he casts out the evil spirit. So she loses the psychic ability that she had. That didn't make the people that were in charge of her, or owned her, so to speak, very happy. In fact, they were so displeased that they drug Paul and Silas to the authorities very publicly, at which point Paul and Silas were beaten and thrown in jail. So this is a horrible situation. It's very uncomfortable. Of course, we have to think jail at this point would have meant a cold, hard floor, uncomfortable situation, and then somebody there in charge of guarding you, making sure you did not escape, you did not get out. So you've got this jailer that's involved in this story. And as we read through the story, it's late at night, and Paul and Silas start singing. And everybody that's in there, all the other prisoners, can hear them singing and praising God. Then there's an earthquake. That doesn't sound very awesome. Usually you're not excited about an earthquake, especially if it's a significant enough of an earthquake to cause any kind of damage. Well, apparently, whatever thing happened, be it supernatural or not, It busted their chains. Their chains were loosened. Now, when I was a little kid, I kind of remember this story being told, and I had this vision of, just chains just falling off and everybody being basically okay. But as an adult, when I look at the story, they were beaten before they were put in prison. So they already had injuries. And my guess is that as this earthquake happened, and it says even the door came off the jail, this would have been a violent type of experience. So most likely there were more injuries that occurred. And as the chaos ensues, the jailer, the guy that's in charge of keeping the prisoners from escaping, essentially he is at a loss. He makes the assumption that he has had prisoners escape. Like people that are supposed to be in his charge are gone. Now, in modern times, something happens that's outside of your control, you're automatically extended grace. Back in Roman culture, if you were in charge of these prisoners and you lost them, you probably paid with your life. So instead of them being able to take his life, the jailer is actually drawing his sword. He's ready to kill himself. He's like, this earthquake happened, my prisoners have escaped, I am going to take my own life. So this situation has gone from bad to really worse, it seems like. Like for all parties involved, this isn't good. This is suboptimal, so to speak. This is a bad situation. In my mind, had Paul and Silas just walked away, the story would have still read really cool. God saved 2 missionaries, Yahtzee, this is awesome. They can go share the gospel some more. That's not the way it played out. Paul and Silas actually hung around. In verse 28 of chapter 16, it actually says, Paul shouted out, "We're all here. Don't take your life. We're here." I have to use my imagination a little bit, but I can almost imagine Paul and Silas even telling other prisoners, "No, guys, just hang out. Here, let's do the right thing." And then the jailer's like, "Guys, get some torches. Let's get some light." Remember, it's dark. It's nighttime, right? And the jailer starts tending to their wounds. And then he asks this interesting question. It's almost like he's saying, "You guys have been incredibly fair to me. You've shown me grace that I did not expect. And I know there's something different about you." And he asks, "What can I do to be saved?" And in verse 31, Paul literally says, "Believe in the Lord and you'll be saved, and your family as well." And the jailer not only tends to their wounds, but ends up taking them to his house, feeding them, and then it says the entire jailer's family is baptized. Like on the spot, Johnny on the spot, right there, they're baptized. This is an incredible example of grace leading to joy despite the circumstances. Just like it says on my whiteboard right here. Grace leading to joy despite the circumstances. I've heard an old saying that every cloud has a silver lining. And I'm not saying we look at every single circumstance and try to force a silver lining on it. But what I'm saying is God's word says that all things work together for good. Maybe we should start trusting that all things work together for good. And maybe we should not expect things to always be getting better. Maybe we should not be looking forward to a utopia here on earth. Not that things can't be good, and not that there's not pleasure in food and family and friendships and fellowships, and there are a lot of things that we can do that are a lot of fun. I'm definitely not anti-fun. But I think if we focus on the mission at hand, it's going to lead us in a direction that we're actually changing people's lives. It's been a couple of years ago since a lady that I was close friends with passed away from cancer, and she struggled for several years with cancer. And she continued to lead a small group at her church almost up until the point that she passed away. And at one point, very late in her treatment, and she was obviously not doing well, she told me, she said, I have had so many incredible opportunities to lead people to the Lord because of my cancer. She said, I know for a fact over 10 people I've had a chance to pray and lead them to Christ because of my cancer. We can show people a great amount of grace, and it's going to bring joy into their lives if we can just get past sometimes even bad external circumstances that we are in our lives, and sometimes we're in stuff that we caused. But we've got a good God that extends, literally dumps grace on us. How about if we do that for other people? This has been your Pressure Break. Have a fantastic week. See you next week.